Okay.
Am I free to share my screen? I prepared a little slide deck.
I think so. Wait, let me check. Yeah,
Does that work at all, or?
I can see your screen.
Okay. So thanks for having me here. I just wanted to talk real quick about the stuff that we've been doing on the infra side in the last year, and probably give a little preview on what's coming up for 2025. I think the focus for most of the teams in IT this year has been on deprecations. Ultimately, the goal for us is to offer services that add value to you. I've been here for quite a while, and the software landscape has changed a lot in the last couple of decades. And whereas before we assembled a bunch of tools like Bugzilla and Git and kind of cobbled stuff together, there are so many other tools out there like GitLab and GitHub that do a much better job of that. So our focus has been on deprecating some of the older technology stack that we've had in place for a long time, and just embracing the new technology. At this time, we have, I think, the vast majority of projects are already off of Git, Garrett, and Bugzilla. I think there's about three out of the 400 and some projects that we have that are still on Git and Garrett and Bugzilla. The next steps there will be to archive everything and just make it available in read-only format. So I do have to thank all of those software packages. They've been really great for the foundation for many years, and a lot of projects have been very productive on them. But the time has come and gone to move along. We've recently archived the Eclipse wiki. It was very useful at the time. I think we had deployed that around 2006, if memory serves me correctly. It had grown into this very large library of documentation and information. Unfortunately, a lot of the content on there had gone stale and just forgotten. And it was a product of its time. The big monolithic wiki was just something that was done decades ago, and nowadays all the project documentation and the wiki stuff is alongside with the project in most cases, and that makes sense. It only makes sense for that. Mainly for security purposes, PHP for project websites is something that we've allowed for many years, and we procrastinated removing it. And in the last couple of years, it's been a huge shift towards security. And one of the objects that was in the scope of the security team was PHP. So that has to go away. And if you know any projects that are using PHP right now, we've been communicating. If you know any projects that are still using PHP on their eclipse.dev website, you might want to get them in touch with the infra team. It will be going away shortly. The infra team has started running some brownouts of the service and just turning it off for hours and hours just to see what breaks, I guess. And we've already spotted a few websites that have to migrate. And the our web dev team is just standing by, willing to help, do the migration, and point people in the right direction. We're not leaving anybody stranded here. The web dev team has authored some templates and some boilerplates and build jobs, and they've provided just about all the basic building blocks to migrate the websites to something like Hugo. The other piece of technology that we're retiring is the Eclipse forums. I think today, actually, on November 14th in 2014, so exactly 10 years ago, I opened a bug saying, what are we doing with the forums? Uh, the forums were starting to get a bit stale even back then. We've procrastinated removing them because we simply didn't have anything to replace them with. And nothing has really emerged where there's a need for the foundation to spend actual time on this service, because there are lots of forum and Stack Overflow like services that are out there. And again, we're trying to focus on stuff that actually adds value. And if there are tools out there that do provide this value, there's no reason for the foundation to kind of duplicate that. So the forums will be going away. We have installed a chat service that's based on Matrix and Element Web. Quite a number of projects are using the chat service. We realize that it's not the same as a forum, but it does allow for very interactive communication with users and developers. So I didn't put the link here. That would have made too much sense. It is chat.eclipse.org. That's the chat service. And finally, we are deprecating something that's called committer tools. So that's essentially just a small little set of tools that we created as glue to try to tie in the Git and the Garrett and the Bugzilla and all of those. And those are made deprecated just by virtue of moving off of those platforms. If there are any questions, feel free to jump in. I don't know how these calls usually run, but otherwise I'll just keep talking.
We usually do questions at the end, but well, if anyone has a question, just raise your hand.
So one of the focus areas for the IT team in recent months has been the stability of our common build infrastructure, so the Jenkins build offering. We realize that the build offering is a very useful and valuable tool, and when it's not operating correctly, it's highly disruptive. And if you've ever worked in IT long enough, you realize that you're always chasing the bottleneck. Today's bottleneck will be fixed, and tomorrow's bottleneck will emerge as a result of that. So earlier this year, we've stabilized our Kubernetes cluster, which is getting quite sizable. Actually, I think we have 32 or 36 compute nodes in there. It's quite powerful. There's a lot of hardware there. But that, having a powerful cluster led us to the bottleneck of storage. So all the storage that we had it just could not keep up with the demand of the constant builds and all that. So in early of 2024, we validated a storage solution based on Ceph. So it's a massively redundant and massively scalable storage solution. And the migration process is what the release engineering team has been working on very heavily. There are about 250 Jenkins, we call them Gyro, it's Jenkins instance running on OKD, which is our Kubernetes platform. So we have about 62% of the instances migrated over to Ceph. There's about 250 to do, so there are 120 or 150, 150 that are done. So it's a very mechanical and manual process to move these over, but it's transparent for most, and it is already leading to much improved stability for everyone, as the old storage devices are not as busy as they once were. This week we've migrated repo.eclipse.org to Ceph. It has been problematic, I know, for a lot of people. So that should get better effective immediately. And we're just wondering what the next bottleneck is going to be, because there will be one. We suspect it will be the network. We do have pretty powerful network backends, but like everything else, everything has a limit. So for next year, we want to focus a lot on the user experience. Most of our teams, and I know the release engineering team is going through a lot of migrations towards better service. The web development team is going through a lot of migrations and bringing up a lot of the Drupal backends that we use for our content management. And the infra team has been working on a lot of migrations towards better and more stable hardware. And finally, in 2025, a lot of those back-end kind of tasks are going to rapidly come to an end. So the IT team will be able to focus a lot more on as opposed to cleaning up the house, we'll be able to focus on adding, an improved user experience. The two major tools that we use for developers are GitLab and GitHub, and both of those are actively developed on and improved. We've just released a new version of GitLab, which offers GitLab Duo, which is an add-on component for AI and AI coding assistance. So we want to investigate that. It's not something that comes out of the box with GitLab. It has to be installed separately. But we think that that could be very valuable for our community. We also want to investigate using Elasticsearch, because the GitLab search function is not great without Elasticsearch. That does require some involvement on our end. We do have great friends at GitHub, and we're always talking to them to see how we can expand on the GitHub offering. GitHub is very responsive to the needs of their users, and they ask us regularly how GitHub is working for the Eclipse Foundation, and how they can help. They've been generous in offering us an enterprise license that's allowed us to leverage the GitHub Actions better and offer more to those projects that are on GitHub. So I'm eager to see what they have coming down the pipe in 2025 as well. Some of the other stuff that we want to focus on is, as mentioned, release engineering has been doing a lot of migrations. So once the focus on migrations is over, what do we do with Nexus? And there's a greater demand for Docker images and Docker image hosting. And I believe that Nexus 3 is the technology that will allow us to do that and so much more. We are currently using Nexus version 2 for repo.eclipse.org. So do expect some news about that in the coming months. We do want to expand on our usage of the RISC-V platform. We've deployed 2 boards to support some of the native builds, and we are producing some builds based on RISC-V. We might want to expand on that in the coming year. With the web dev team, we want to focus on project vitality information, and I know that the project team as well is working on gathering information and metrics that will that we can probably use to help provide dashboards, trends, and just other vitality information for projects. So do expect that we will be asking you for your input soon as to what you'd like to see. We're not big on reinventing the wheel. We're capable of seeing what GitHub is doing. We don't necessarily want to re-implement that, but it does provide us with some information as to what's out there and what's possible. The last 2 bullets are kind of just repeated from the other slide. And that was it. That's it for my presentation. There's a lot going on. Again, the focus is on providing a service that is valuable and helpful. Sometimes we do have to take a step back and sweep the floors and wash the counters, and that's coming to an end rapidly. We'll be able to focus on doing stuff that we feel provides value to our committers and contributors.
Thank you, Denis. That was actually great, a great summary of what's happening and what will happen. We have a question from Denise Hendricks regarding the committer tools being removed. Does that mean the download stats go away? It is one of the entries listed on my profile under committer tools. So I think we're talking about 2 different sets of committer tools, but I will let you answer that question.
Can you still hear me at all? I think my Zoom has crashed.
I can hear you.
Okay. The committer tools are just the download stats will stay. We are going to want to modernize the interface and the way it actually operates. But I think we're going to approach it a different fashion. One of the ideas I tossed around to the web dev team is that I think we want to leverage the project management interface to allow projects to specify what one download actually means, and we will provide the queries and the charts that will allow you to see that, so that you don't have to interact with some clunky interface for issuing queries. So if you define what your what a download actually means to your project, we'd like to build charts based on that. That's the idea I've been having.
Any other questions? No, so I guess you were very clear in your presentation. Well, we have someone that just arrived. Oh, that's Denis. I think we can stop the recording now.